안녕하세요. 저는 주한 뉴질랜드 대사 돈 베넷입니다. This monument is a monument in honor of the Battle of Kapyong. The Battle of Kapyong happened 73 years ago. It was a 4-day battle between April 22 and April 25 back in 1951.
The day the New Zealand ambassador sent us a message was the day the commemoration ceremony for the 73rd anniversary of the Battle of Kapyong was held.
During that battle, New Zealand soldiers fought alongside Australian and other Commonwealth soldiers. They fought very bravely and held their line in the face of a ferocious enemy attack. And in doing that, they supported troops from other countries fighting under the UN flag.
The Battle of Kapyong took place in April 1951, and the 27th British Commonwealth Brigade were victorious after a fierce battle against Chinese forces. At the time, the 16th Field Regiment of the Royal New Zealand Artillery was ordered to withdraw together with the ROK Army 6th Division, but it was caught in a series of attacks by the Chinese forces. The New Zealand Artillery continued to hold the line, and the Chinese forces eventually fled. During the battle, the New Zealand Artillery rained down a huge amount of shells, causing enormous damage to the Chinese forces. The Battle of Kapyong, in which the 27th British Commonwealth Brigade, with 3 battalions and about 2,000 troops, held off a Chinese force of 10,000 men, is considered one of the fiercest battles of the Korean War.
These are not just monuments to the Kapyong battle. They are national monuments that stand as testimony to all those who fought and fell in the Korean War. And we will remember them all.
Korea and New Zealand are celebrating 62 years of friendship this year. But did you know that the bilateral relationship began when New Zealand decided to send troops when the Korean War broke out in 1950? When the Korean War broke out, the UN Security Council requested UN member states to support combat troops. And New Zealand was one of the first countries to respond. It is also one of the countries that dispatched the largest number of troops relative to its population.
And I hope that through this program, we are diplomats, Korean people can learn more about the great relationship between our two countries and our shared history, shared values, and mutual respect.
Today's episode of ARE Diplomats began with a suggestion from the Embassy of New Zealand. To commemorate the 74th anniversary of the outbreak of the Korean War, we're going to talk about the Korean War again this week, following last week's episode.
It's an honor to meet World Warrior. Thank you so much.
First, I visited the residence to talk more about New Zealand's participation in the Korean War with the ambassador.
네, 바로 이곳이 뉴질랜드 대사관저입니다.
I wanted to turn back time to 1950. I was most curious about why New Zealand decided to participate in the Korean War when it broke out. So on June 27th, 1950, just 2 days after the outbreak of the Korean War, New Zealand expressed full support for the UN Security Council's proposal for military aid to South Korea. At the time, South Korea and New Zealand had not established diplomatic relations, but New Zealand government quickly made the decision to dispatch troops. So what was the reason?
Well, the call was issued by the United Nations. New Zealand was a founding member of the United Nations and very strongly believed in the principles of peace and security and collective action to ensure those. So it was an obvious thing for us to respond to the UN call for action. It was seen as a bit of a test of the collective security capabilities of the United Nations, whether we could enforce that. And so we were very keen to participate and make that work. It was also an opportunity for us to act with our allies, Australia, other Commonwealth nations, and also our strategic ally, the United States, to work together to protect the values that we held very dear. And then finally, I think also, as well as being an aggressive act of war, it also caused a humanitarian crisis. So New Zealand people felt very strongly that we had a moral and humanitarian obligation to participate to help resolve this issue for the South Korean people.
New Zealand gave its full support in June 1950 when the UN Security Council adopted a resolution to provide military support to South Korea. At the time, Prime Minister Sidney Holland announced his intention to immediately dispatch 2 naval frigates to Korea. The 2 frigates, HMNZS Tutira and Pukaki, departed from Auckland on July 3rd, arrived in Korean waters on July 30th, and participated in full-fledged UN naval operations. Afterwards, the Royal New Zealand Navy alternately sent 8 ships to perform various missions during the war. On July 14th, the New Zealand government received a request from the UN Secretary-General to dispatch ground troops. At the time, it was difficult for the Royal New Zealand Army to send troops overseas, but it decided to establish a new artillery unit for dispatch to Korea. On July 27th, New Zealand decided to create a unit named K-Force, which means Korean Force, and began recruitment. Nearly 6,000 volunteers signed up in just 9 days of recruitment. After the selection and training processes, an artillery unit was formed with 640 soldiers and 38 officers. The Royal New Zealand Artillery departed from Wellington on December 10th and entered the Korean War after arriving in Busan on December 31st.
And last April,
Korea hosted the Revisit Korea program for New Zealand Korean War veterans to commemorate the 73rd anniversary of the Battle of Kapyong. So you also spent much time with them during their stay in Korea. How was it?
It was great. It was both an honor, but also a real pleasure to spend that time with our veteran who came back from New Zealand, Colin Carley, 92 years old. He's quite a character. He had some great stories to tell. And it was very moving to see his reaction to what South Korea has become since he made all those efforts and sacrifices back then to help protect the country. And he was also here with his daughter, Rachel, and with a couple of descendants of another veteran, Vincent Porter. And it was their first time to Korea. And they were very impressed to see what their father and grandfather had fought to defend. In fact, they liked it so much they were staying on for a holiday in Korea after the events.
So how do you think the Korean government is honoring Korean war veterans?
I think they do a wonderful job. The invitations to come and visit Korea and then the program for the veterans and their descendants are issued and organized by the Ministry of Patriots and Veterans Affairs. They look after the veterans very well. And the overall program, I think, is a real sign of the commitment of the Korean government to remembering and honoring the veterans who came and fought for Korea during the war. And they extend this program to the 22 sending states. I think it's really special for those veterans to be able to come back and see what the country has become that they spent so much time and effort defending back in the day. And the Korean government has been very generous also in extending the program to veterans' descendants as time passes and the veterans themselves are becoming, unfortunately, fewer.
On April 25th, there was a special event held at the War Memorial in Seoul. And I thought it was very unique because it was held very early in the morning. So tell us more about the day and why it was held so early in the morning.
It's a tradition in New Zealand and Australia both to celebrate Anzac Day with a dawn service. So as the sun comes up in the morning, that's why it's held so early. We hold this ceremony around the world, and we have done for many, many years. And so Anzac Day is an opportunity for us to commemorate all of our fallen soldiers through all conflicts. The actual day is the day of a battle in World War I that took place in Gallipoli in Turkey. And the biggest ceremonies, Anzac Day ceremonies of all, are held there every year. That was a failed campaign in World War I, and we lost many, many people. So we use that to commemorate all of our fallen around the world. Here in Korea, it just so happens that the Anzac Day, which is the 25th of April, was the same as the end of a battle that happened here in Korea that involved Commonwealth forces, so Australia, New Zealand, UK and Canada, which took place in Kapyong and Imjin and around that area. So it's sort of a good opportunity in Korea to celebrate both the traditional Anzac Day and the Korean War efforts of Australians and New Zealanders together.
I had a reason to ask the ambassador about the Anzac Day commemoration event held at the War Memorial of Korea on April 25th.
오늘 이곳에서 안작데이 추모 행사가 열려요. 그런데 새벽 6시 반에 시작합니다. 그래서 아침에 굉장히 일찍 일어나서 이곳에 왔고요. 안작데이에 대해 짧게 설명을 드리면 원래 이제 이 날은 제1차 세계대전 중 갈리폴리 상륙작전에서 전사한 호주, 뉴질랜드 군인들을 추모하는 날이었다고 해요. 그런데 지금은 모든 전쟁에서 희생한 호주, 뉴질랜드 군인들을 추모하는 날로 바뀌었다고 합니다. 우리나라 현충일 같은 날이라고 생각하시면 될 것 같아요. 그래서 이제 오늘 아침 일찍 6시 반에 이곳에서 추모 행사가 열리는데 저희도 그 행사에 참여하기 위해서 이곳에 왔습니다. 그러면 저희와 함께 그 행사장에 가보실까요, 여러분?
When we arrived, preparations for the event were in full swing. Although it was held early in the morning, many people took part in the event. A lot of people wore poppy on their chest. They say the poppy was the first flower to bloom at the graves of fallen soldiers from World War I. Afterwards, the flower became the symbol of Anzac Day. The reason why today's event was even more meaningful and special was because veterans of the Korean War from 4 Commonwealth countries were present together. And this is Colin Carley, a New Zealand Korean War veteran. He is one of the special diplomats I will meet today.
Colin Carley served in the Korean War from December 1950 to May 1951. At the age of 17, he volunteered for the Army even though to join he was supposed to be 21 years old. He mainly participated in battles near the Han River as a member of Fox Troop 163, 16th Field Regiment.
The event began with the arrival of flags.
As a former Australian Governor-General, Sir William Dean said, Anzac is not merely about loss. It is about courage, about endurance and duty and love of country and mateship and good humour and the survival of a sense of self-worth and decency in the face of dreadful odds.
Robert Marchioni, a 19-year-old able seaman from New Zealand, had tragically been shot and killed by North Koreans. Unfortunately, Robert Marchioni's body was never able to be recovered. The vast majority of New Zealanders who have given their lives for our country in war are buried overseas or have no known graves. For many bereaved Kiwis, therefore, the only pilgrimage they are able to make to remember their fallen loved ones is on this day, here, to attend a local Anzac Day service.
전사들의 희생에는 자신의 나라를 수호하는 것 외에도 자유와 민주주의, 평화와 같은 인류의 보편 가치를 지키기 위한 것도 포함되었습니다. 6.25 전쟁 전사들을 비롯하여 호주와 뉴질랜드의 모든 전몰 용사님들께 깊은 존경과 추모의 뜻을 다시 한번 다시는.
During World War I, New Zealand sent 110,000 troops. Among them, about 18,000 were killed and 55,000 were injured. If you think about the fact that New Zealand's total population at the time was less than 2 million people, you can see that they really made a huge sacrifice. About 30 years after the end of World War I, New Zealand sent troops again to Korea. Veteran Colin Colley also came to Korea at that time. What is he thinking now? Is he reminiscing about his time here 74 years ago? After the memorial service, I quietly followed Veteran Colley. There is a monument engraved with the names of fallen soldiers from the Korean War outside. I think Veteran Colley and the ambassador are going to take a look around this place together. The ambassador is looking up the names of comrades who fought with Veteran Colley here 70 years ago.
There's McDonald there. And who was the other one? Long. Yeah, big hole. Yeah.
So the two of them stood in front of the monument for a while. Here, I witnessed the heartbreaking sight. Veterans and their families were finding the names of their fellow servicemen and family members on the monument and making rubbings with paper and pencil.
No, it's William.
I could feel the earnest longing for their family and fellow servicemen from them wanting to bring back at least their names.
거의 다 왔습니다. 저는 지금 뉴질랜드 참전용사군과 그 가족분들을 만나러 갑니다. 오늘 이곳에서 본부에서 주최하는 만찬이 열리거든요. 그래서 저도 그분들을 만나 뵙고 짧게 인터뷰를 좀 해보려고 합니다.
Veterans and their families arrived at the venue. And the event finally began.
It's a well-understood truth that the liberties we enjoy come at a cost. Please give our heroes a big round of applause.
A welcome speech by Minister of Patriots and Veterans Affairs followed.
오늘날 대한민국의 평화와 번영은 여러분을 비롯한 유엔 참전 용사들의 희생과 공헌 위에 이룩된 것입니다. 대한민국 정부는 이 땅을 지킨 영웅들을 기억하고 그 숭고한 희생 정신과 인류애를 미래 세대에게 계승하며 보훈 외교를 통해 참전 국가의 우정을 더욱 굳건히 다져 나가겠습니다.
Next, New Zealand Korean War veteran Colin Colley gave a speech on behalf of the veterans who visited Korea.
I lied about my age when I volunteered for military service in 1950. I was 17 years old and ran away from home looking for an adventure. I certainly found one. My experiences in the Korean War shaped my transition from adolescence to adulthood. I was a member of Fox Troop 163, 16th New Zealand Field Regiment. I served alongside my Australian Brigade when I patrolled near Panmunjom. I recall being terrified by all the tracer bullets that whizzed past and felt sick. And when skirmishes with the North Koreans began, because I never knew I would survive them and able to be returned home. It was my privilege to contribute in a very small way in the war effort. My distant memory of the bitter cold has been replaced by memories made by this visit, which I have shown tremendous wealth, warmth, hospitality and kindness, from which I am truly humbly and sincerely thank you. Thank you.
His speech really moved my heart. After the speech, I was able to speak with veteran colleagues.
I heard this is your first time visiting Korea after armistice. So how does it feel?
Unreal. It's a different country. It's a new world. It's so good now. And, so clean. And, but I wouldn't recognize the place.
Then what does serving in the Korean War mean to him?
I just hope that I've made a very little difference.
How does it feel when you are told that you're a hero for Koreans?
No, I don't feel like that.
You don't feel like that?
No. No, we're just trying to help people. And these people work so hard. And they deserve the best. They deserve the best. It's a great place now. And, they're going further ahead all the time. Industry is so great. And the people are so kind. So kind. And they work hard. That's all I can say, really.
I was very glad to hear that you have a very close Korean friend in New Zealand.
Oh, yes. He's a Korean. I don't know how long he's been in New Zealand. He worked real hard and had a big avocado orchard.
Oh.
And sold that and had one sushi shop in Mangawai.
Yeah.
And he's been there 4, 5 years, and now he's opened a second shop in Mangawai. Sincere.
What is his name?
BK Kim.
BK Kim? BK Kim.
I was also able to talk with the families of the veterans who also came to Korea.
Okay, Rachel, how does it feel to come to Korea as a family member of a veteran?
It's been a wonderful experience for my father. He has spoken for many years about wanting to visit, and he has a very dear friend, a very kind, close friend who he plays golf with, called BK. Well, he knows him as BK, and he has extremely proud of the connection and my father's contribution, and has encouraged both of us to apply for the program and visit your beautiful country.
So how does it make you feel to know that a family member participated in such a historic event?
I think myself, and I have 2 sisters, Jane and Georgina, I think we feel very proud that Dad made that contribution. As a very young man, probably arriving very frightened and not knowing what to expect. And I think the kindness and hospitality you've shown us has taken away some of those memories that were difficult. I think he's been very fortunate to come back and is very proud of his service for your country.
It is time to meet another war veteran's family member. This is Jennifer Porter. She is the daughter of the late Vincent Porter, a New Zealand Korean War veteran.
The late Vincent Porter, a veteran who passed away in 2002, served in Korea from October 1952 to December 1954. He mainly participated in battles near the Imjin River as a member of Easy Troop 163, 16th Field Regiment. Porter, who served as Lance Bombardier, was discharged from the military after suffering an eye injury and undergoing surgery in Japan.
Okay, so how does it feel to come to Korea as a family member of a veteran?
Well, I'm incredibly honoured. I feel very privileged. My son, Connor, is with me, and we were very close to Dad, or him as a young boy and myself. We have been able to go to the places where the action happened, and even as simple as I have a photograph that Dad took of Seoul Station way back, and to drive past that today knowing that my father had been here. So yeah, it's been a very special time, a lot of emotion.
The Korean War is an important event in the world history. So how does it make you feel to know that a family member participated in such an important event?
So I grew up always knowing Dad had been here fighting and been a soldier here. It was a part of our life. My sisters and I, you know, every year we would go to Anzac Day. Dad was in part of the Returned Servicemen's Association in New Zealand, and I knew, and he didn't talk much about the war. He wouldn't tell us what he did. He told us he drove trucks. We later found out he was a Lance Bombardier and a gunner in the artillery, of course. And later found out he was wounded. He got shrapnel in his eyes. But we always knew that it was a very important time for him. And as I grew up, I also came to understand that he held the Korean people in incredibly high esteem, because I think the contact he had with the civilians at the time was always obviously incredibly positive, and he believed he was here for the right reasons, and having come here and understanding that the people 80 kilometres away across the border are not free. And the reality of that statement, you know, that people go to war to fight for the freedom for our freedoms is so true here. And Dad, that's what Dad did. And yeah, it's very special.
When the war broke out, there was no one who could escape from it. Veterans who risked their lives fighting for freedom and peace. Perhaps what they hope is that there will never be another war in this land again. About a month after the veterans and their families returned to New Zealand, we visited Kapyong again. Our destination for today is this school.
안녕하세요.
The reason we came to Kapyongbuk Middle School today is because a special event is being held here.
카메라 보고 인사 한번 해주시겠어요?
안녕하세요. 저희 학교 이렇게 방문해 주셔서 감사합니다.
We said hello to the teachers at the school. We entered the place where the event was being held. That is right. A scholarship awards ceremony will be held here today. Soon, we saw a welcome face. The New Zealand ambassador arrived.
자, 지금부터 한국전쟁 가평전투 뉴질랜드 참전용사 장학금 수여식을 시작하겠습니다.
한국전쟁 당시 가평은 치열한 전투의 장소였고 뉴질랜드 참전용사들의 희생과 용기로 지켜졌습니다. 한국전쟁 이후 많은 시간이 지났음에도 불구하고 항상 잊지 않고 관심 가져주시고 이렇게 장학금 수여를 통해 본교 학생들을 격려해 주심에 깊이 감사드립니다.
베레
The New Zealand ambassador's greeting followed.
여러분 안녕하십니까? 저는 주한 뉴질랜드 대사 존 베넷입니다. 오늘 여기에 여러분과 있어서 저는 행복합니다. And some of those military personnel, after they returned to New Zealand at the end of the war, they remained very fond of South Korea and they wanted to continue helping the South Korean people. And so a number of our veterans, they got together and brought together some money which they wanted to send over to South Korea to donate to young people like you to help continue to defend the idea of South Korea even after they had left here.
Veterans from 4 Commonwealth countries who fought together in the Battle of Kapyong in 1951 are providing scholarships to middle and high schools in this area every year to honor the sacrifices of soldiers who fell during the battle and to help foster local talent.
11일.
The New Zealand Veteran Scholarships that students will receive today has been delivered to Kapyongbuk Middle School every year since 1988.
학생 대표는 자리로 돌아와 주기 바랍니다.
After the ceremony, the students prepared a surprise event. Another memory between Korea and New Zealand. I hope everyone will remember this for a long time. ARE Diplomats also prepared a special event with students.
그래서 뭔가 그분들이 이렇게 지금 어린 학생들이 특히 가평에서 잘 지내고 있는 모습을 볼 수 있으면 기분이 좋으실 것 같다. 이런 생각이 들어서 좀 여러분들이 메시지를 좀 그분들에게 전달해 줬으면 좋겠다라는 생각이 들어서 선생님들이랑 이야기를 해서 이런 자리를 마련하게 됐습니다.
Together, we are going to create a video letter to deliver to veterans.
마지막 부분만 하자.
안녕하세요. 가평 북중 3학년 장시우입니다. 오늘 이렇게 뉴질랜드 대사관으로부터 장학금을 받게 됐습니다. 장학금도 감사하고 참전 용사분들의 희생에도 감사드립니다. 참전 용사분들의 헌신과 노력을 잊지 않고 저 또한 다른 사람을 위해 헌신할 수 있는 사람이 될 수 있도록 노력하겠습니다. 다시 한번 감사드립니다.
우리 가평을 지켜주셔서 감사합니다.
덕분에 행복하게 지낼 수 있고
그리고 친구들과 사이좋게 공부할 수 있게 되었습니다. 감사합니다.
저희에게 의미 있는 장학금을 주셔서 감사합니다.
덕분에 좋은 환경에서 배울 수 있습니다.
건강하세요.
안녕하세요. 저는 가평북중 2학년 손지유입니다. 먼저 뉴질랜드 대사관으로부터 장학금을 받고 영상 편지를 남기게 되어 영광입니다. 참전 용사분들 덕분에 우리 가평 지역이 지켜졌습니다. 매번 저희를 찾아주시고 기억해 주셔서 감사드립니다. 이 은혜 잊지 않고 커서 뉴질랜드 참전 용사분들처럼 훌륭한 어른이 되겠습니다. 감사합니다.
저희가 장학금을 받은 만큼 항상 열심히 하고 성장하는 학생이 되겠습니다. 감사합니다.
해마다 잊지 않고 가평북중학교를 방문해 주시고 장학금도 주셔서 너무 감사합니다. 건강하고 행복하세요. 건행!
The relationship between Korea and New Zealand began during the Korean War. Over the past 70 years, it has expanded and deepened by many people in various fields. I believe that the students and teachers here will also play the role of diplomats who can create a closer connection between Korea and New Zealand in the future. For that, we must not forget the sacrifice of New Zealand's war veterans 70 years ago and protect freedom and peace in this land.
As a diplomat, I firmly believe that the best way to resolve all conflicts is through peaceful discussion. So I really believe that diplomacy is always going to lead to better solutions than any solutions that threaten the security of people. So my message of peace would be to give diplomacy a chance and to encourage diplomatic talks between countries.
The ambassador's message is what we need now more than ever, isn't it?